Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's with a heavy heart that I speak on this bill, and also a sickening feeling in my gut about the sycophantic display from both the government and the opposition today as to who can do the most bidding on behalf of the THA and the federal group. But I want to take some time to talk about the human impact of this bill before I turn my attention to the mechanics of it. I've been interested in the impact of poker machines for many, many years, and it comes as no surprise to members of this House, I'm sure, to hear that I believe firmly that poker machines do not belong in pubs and clubs in our community. Poker machines are a social and economic drain on Tasmania and should be removed completely. But I want to talk about the human stories because this is what the bill will do an impact on. I want to talk about those people who used to come and see my mum when she was working at the Hobart Benevolent Society many, many years ago when poker machines were first introduced into our communities. About the stories that when she was working for this emergency relief agency, when they would come in and talk about not having enough money to pay for rent, to pay for food to go on the table, about the shame that they felt. I'd like to think about and talk about the people who used to come to my house when my father was a Baptist minister in Moona, who again would come seeking refuge in the church because they were homeless because of poker machine addictions. I've seen many friends impacted by poker machine addiction. Some who've been addicted themselves, others who've had family members addicted. When I used to work within the prison legal service, I would often see inmates who were in there because of their poker machine addiction, who had turned to a life of crime to try and pay for their addiction and to cover up the impact of their addiction. As Mayor of Glenorchy, many people used to come up and disclose personal stories to me. I've heard about grandparents who now have their grandchildren living with them because their children have gambled away the family home, who have to spend every part of their pension trying to pay back the debts of their children, who have also been abused by their children and money stolen from them because their family members have gambling debts. I've shared tears with people as they tell me about the tragic suicides of their partners and children because of poker machines. I'm getting emotional, Mr Deputy Speaker, because these are real human stories. This is the impact of what poker machines do in our community. I've listened to businesses tell me about the impact of employee theft, and we've seen recently in media stories about Robbo's Meats, an absolute gem of the northern suburbs, who's been seriously impacted by poker addiction in that business. So how do these machines work? What makes them so addictive? The simple fact is that they are designed to be highly addictive deliberately. Aristocrat founder, producer of poker machines, Len Ainsworth, when asked what the secret of the company's success was, said, "Oh, I think building a better mousetrap." And that really does say it all, doesn't it, Mr Deputy Speaker? They've built a mousetrap, and we are allowing people to be trapped. On Kaching Pokie Nations, it talks about the designers of these machines and some of the writing instructions that companies give to these designers. And where the real stop is at the hands of the designers, with one designer who asks the client, "Do you want to shear the sheep or slaughter it?" And then they then go on to say that they define slaughtering the sheep as a 85% player return rate. Well, that's exactly what we have here in Tasmania already, 85%. We allow poker machines to slaughter the sheep. And of course, there's plenty of science behind how these poker machines become addictive. They are designed deliberately to stimulate chemicals in the brain, the pleasure centres in our brain. The lights, the sounds, the fact that you always hear those sounds in the major key, never in the minor key. The fact that you hear the little runs at the end of a particular spin. The lights that stimulate the brain keep you engaged, the graphics, the eyes that try and draw you to a particular machine. When you talk to people who have been addicted or who are addicted to poker machines, it's not uncommon for them to say that they feel a relief and escape when they play poker machines, that they feel the hypnotic effect of poker machines. And as I described earlier this morning, this is the reason why poker machine addiction, gambling addiction, has been identified as behavioural addiction akin to substance abuse, akin to being addicted to cocaine, to tobacco, to alcohol. It's a medical issue. Now, many people in the community have been calling out these stories for a very long time, and particularly journalists have as well. And Steve Kinane from ABC have been working on a story for a number of months, and I've been working very closely with him, putting him in touch with local people in the community so they could share their stories. And it's very difficult for journalists to cover this particular issue because the shame felt by people who are addicted means that they often don't speak out. But Steve did talk to two, in particular, brave individuals who felt a compulsion to share their story with the community so that we can learn, so that hopefully people like us in this parliament can do better. And I want to read what Steve Kinane had printed just recently. He says, Kelly Johnson, not her real name, knew she'd reached rock bottom when her poker machine addiction, when she didn't have the money to feed her 4 children. I spent all of my husband's wages in a day for a fortnight that left us with no money for food, and we had all the kids at home. It's not something I'm proud of. The Tasmanian estimates she lost over $100,000 on the pokies and says she played the machines as a way of coping with bipolar. I'm not a gambler of any other sort. There's something in the lights and the music of the machines that works with the wiring of the brain, she says. It's almost like they put you into a trance. It's really hard to describe the impact it has on your mind. When things are really tough for me, the only thing that shuts my mind down and gets me away from my head, they can put a spell on you. Rob Creschel Sr., who's here with us today, knows exactly what Johnson's talking about. He lost his home, his wife and his kids through his addiction. Now a volunteer with St Vincent de Paul, where he helps feed the homeless, Creschel says he used poker machines to block out the pain from a debilitating knee injury. It numbs your conscience. Once I was in front of a machine, nothing else mattered. Whatever is troubling you disappears. Steve goes on later in his article to talk about the impacts. And the reality is that people like Creschel and Johnson who've experienced gambling addiction are rarely listened to when it comes to poker machine policy. In Tasmania, there are a decade-long history of deals done behind closed doors between businesses, lobbyists and successive Labor and Liberal governments, and it's normally the gambling industry that wins big. Steve also talks about Captain Jeff Milkins from the Salvation Army, and I note that we have representatives of the Salvation Army here in the chamber today. And Jeff is an absolute trooper in Glenorchy, and he told Steve the story. It says that poker machines are ruining lives. Jeff says, I've had guys tell me how the machines left them eating out of bins. A lot of them are abused or damaged and had a bad start to life. You don't seem to find as many poker machine venues in the wealthier areas. It's in the poorer areas where people need hope, and the lure of winning sucks them in. It's disgusting, Mr Deputy Speaker. Absolutely disgusting. How sad is it that as a community we have people who reach out for comfort and find it in the arms of a government-subsidised, supported poker machine industry? The Elwick Hotel, during the 2018 election campaign, had an article, I'll call it an article, but it's more of an editorial, in the Glenorchy Gazette, which promoted the fact that they have poker machines in their pub as a social benefit because they were welcoming lonely people into their pub. That is disgusting. That the only place that lonely people can go is to a poker machine pub. Let's talk about the calculation of losses. At the moment, with spin speeds of 3 seconds and maximum bets of $5, it is possible to lose with a player return of 85%, $18,000 a day by playing the currently allowable 20 hours. And before anyone suggests that it's not possible to do that to play for 28 hours, there will be people in the sector, and I'm sure some in the room here today, who would tell you that there are people who will soil themselves rather than leave a lucky machine or wear incontinence pads so they don't miss out on the opportunity. If we were to adopt the harm minimisation measures that I will be proposing, spin speeds of 6 seconds, $1 maximum bet limits, 12-hour limitations on play and player return of 95%, then it'd be a very different picture. It would only be possible to lose $900 a day. Now, $900 is still a hell of a lot of money, but it is 1/50th of what can be lost now. As I said before, Mr Deputy Speaker, the community of Glenorchy is one that I am passionate about, and I have seen firsthand the devastating impacts of pokie machines. It is no coincidence that they are most heavily concentrated in those areas that experience social and economic distress, such as Glenorchy. In Glenorchy, the community loses approximately $2 million a month on pokie machines. It is ground zero as far as the community sector and the community are concerned. It's probably known as the Golden Mile if you're at the federal group, however. As I say, Elwick Hotel is the epicentre of that. That facility is open for 20 hours a day. It opens at 8 a.m. in the morning and closes at 4 a.m. You can go there at any time of the day or night and find people there playing on a poker machine. When the Glenorchy City Council debated a motion regarding poker machines in their community recently, and I was mayor at the time, I decided on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. to visit the Elwick Hotel to see just how many people were playing there. I had hoped to find nobody, but of course there were people lined up at the doors waiting to go through at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. That's not a recreational player. That is someone who is a gambling addict who needs to play a poker machine at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. That's $2 million every month that's not being spent on food and essentials. It's not being spent on rent. It's not being spent on putting food on children's tables. Interestingly enough, the impact of the COVID lockdown was an absolute economic blessing for the Glenorchy community because our local businesses reported that so much more money that used to go into the pokie machines was now going into their businesses. There are people who are actually doing much better, our small businesses much better, because the pokie machines were closed down. Creditors were being paid. It was a boom for our local economy. Now, if $2 million is not enough in terms of financial loss, the impact on poker machines is far greater as well than just the financial loss. You add to this the stress that it places on families, increased domestic violence, debt-related self-harm and suicide, and crimes or acts of dishonesty that are associated with gambling addiction. It's a ripple impact. It's not just the one person playing the machine. It ripples throughout the community. Research has found that problem gamblers directly affect 6 others. They might be workmates, friends or family. What this bill is, sadly, is an attempt at profit maximisation rather than harm minimisation. Because if it really was about harm minimisation, then we would be doing something to make sure that those, no matter how small the number might be, impacted by problem gambling would be protected. But we don't do this in this bill. The government collects a significant amount of revenue and taxes from poker machines, and it too is addicted to it. The social and economic costs of problem gambling includes prisons, bankruptcy, depression, violence and productivity loss, and it's been estimated to be at approximately $144 million per year. This is an absolute dreadful return on the investment for the Tasmanian taxpayer. And of course, this bill will mean that the federal group will benefit from a significant tax cut on their casino poker machines. Hotels and clubs will certainly receive a windfall capital gain in the capital value of their businesses because of the individual venue and machine licences they will receive. The government's intention to tender to the private sector the rights to operate the networking monitoring licence for EGMs and hotels and clubs is wrong, and I don't support it. Network monitoring compliance should not be in the hands of any private sector operator, and in particular, not to a business like Federal with an interest in the outcome. There is no point at which all agreements with this bill will end to allow the licensing regime to be re-evaluated. It is a deal for life, essentially, in that respect. It goes on in perpetuity. There will be never again a point in time where the Tasmanian Parliament can come together and take stock and to consider the impact of poker machines on the community. Because the licences to operate EGMs in hotels and clubs will be for a period of 20 years. And sometimes, if it's traded before the lease expires, the new operator will be granted a further 20 years from the date of transfer. Yep. The prospect, therefore, is that the industry can continue, effectively, as I say, in perpetuity, as there will always be licences in play as the leases are rolled around and over. And I know that the Minister has made some deal about smashing the monopoly. And whilst usually I would say that smashing monopolies are a good thing, there is also a perverse outcome here too. The consequences of smashing the monopoly now means you put a dangerous product into a competitive market. And there are real risks to the users, the end users, that these particularly dangerous products will be incentivised between competitors. We could end up with a situation where the Elwick Hotel is offering palmies and $10 to pop into your poker machine to try and incentivise you to come there, rather than the Carlisle up the road where they'll be offering a free happy hour and $10 worth of poker machine tokens.
That would be against the code, wouldn't it?
It's not in the legislation.
That would be against the code.
While the government refuses to adopt real and effective harm minimisation measures, the impost of those least able to pay will continue, and returns from the gaming industry will not be shared appropriately, irrespective of the tax rates, licence agreements and the distributions of returns. Claims by the government that Tasmania's harm minimisation framework is regarded as best practice is absolutely preposterous. The measures I propose have been proven to help break the addiction cycle and are $1 maximum bet limits per spin, which is currently $5. Slower spin speeds, at least 6 seconds. Set maximum jackpots to $1,000 instead of $25,000 to stop chasing that big win. Increasing the return to players to 95% instead of currently 85%. Disallowing sound, messages, responses that disguise losses as wins. Disallowing false near misses. Introducing regular machine shutdowns to provide breaks in play. And limiting opening hours for gaming venues. None of these measures are new, unproven or difficult to implement. They've been proposed by independent and respected researchers such as Associate Professor Charles Livingstone from Monash University, the Federal Government's Productivity Commission and Tasmania's Liquor and Gaming Commission. The reforms proposed by the government, tinkering the tax rates and fees, increasing the community support levy, reducing the statewide cap on the number of machines by just 150 and adopting individual licensing model will make no difference to the thousands of Tasmanians who are already addicted to pokies or about to be on the hook to pokies. All the government is doing is distributing the super profits amongst the beneficiaries of the poker machine industry. The victims will continue to lose their money just as freely regardless. The poker machine industry likes to promote its product as fun and entertainment. However, the machines that they stand are intended to be highly addictive, as I say, with small wins drawing you in, the lights and sounds and promises of more. The reforms I propose make the machines less addictive and so the amount and rates of losses. If this really is a leisure activity, then the recreational punter will scarcely notice any difference. Now, when I've talked privately to my political colleagues from all parties, they almost invariably profess a dislike for the poker machines, and they often say they don't like to play them themselves. But they, like the addicts, are too drawn to the lure and the fear of these machines. the lure of taxation swelling the Treasury coffers, and the fear of the wrath of the industry should they dare to interfere with their super profits. As long as the industry's business model is rooted on exploiting addicted gamblers, it can never be sustainable on any financial or social measure. And with so much money at stake, we can never have confidence in the standard of probity or that the returns will not continue to be perversely skewed towards the poker machine operators. So it's business as usual. Blatant wealth transfer from the poor to the rich. Tasmanians will lose at all levels, financially, socially and morally. With the few minutes left I have, Mr Deputy Speaker, I want to pay respect and acknowledge the amazing work of the community sector in this particular area. And I again note that we have some here in the chamber today. These are people who work at the coalface. They work with those who are addicted to poker machines. They work with the families, the friends, the co-workers. They see on a daily basis. They're the ones who have to pick up the pieces that this Parliament creates. And when I look through the submissions, the thoughtful submissions that those organisations have made on the draft exposure bill, every time there's a parliamentary inquiry into this matter, they say the same things over and over again. They care about the community. They put the community's interests first. They tell us what will work, what will make a real difference on the ground. They put their heart and soul into the work that they do, and I want to thank them for that. What we see, though, in submissions from the poker machine industry is about how to protect their profits, how to maximise their profits and make sure it's consumed in only such a small number of people. They don't care about the children that are going without food. They don't care that someone's lost their home. They don't care that someone has had to turn to a life of crime to support their poker machine addiction. They don't care about someone's suicide. So that's the stark contrast that we have between submissions. What we have here is a bill designed by the poker machine industry for the benefit of the poker machine industry. But we've had amazing people provide us with submissions, with evidence, suggestions for improvements about how we can make sure that this product is as safe as possible if we have to have it. I beg members of this House to listen to these people who are on the coalface, who know what it's like day to day. You can make a difference. Please make a difference. I want to conclude with the words of Tim Costello from, again, the documentary Kaching, A Pokie Nation. When you think of the politics behind protecting this machine, this is a political failure, and the spread of pokies, in my view, in Australia is really a racket. It's a racket run by people protecting a predatory, addictive product. We can do so much better, Mr Deputy Speaker, so much better. We can look these community sector workers in the eye after tonight and say, yes, we've done everything we can to protect them. We've adopted measures, $1 maximum bet limits, slower spin speeds, all those things that we know make a difference. Deep down, we know they make a difference. Or we can simply look to them and say, look, sorry, we've been bought by a poker machine industry who are keen to protect their super profits. I know I will sleep easy tonight. I'm asking the other members to think about it too.
Deputy Speaker.
Mr Ellis, member for Braden.